After a very successful trilogy, Paul the Panda's journey, my martial arts training is almost complete. Receive the Wand of Wisdom from Master Akwe as a symbol for the highest realm. The panda proved one day that, both in ability and in quality, you all deserve the title of Dragon Warrior. So in addition to the quality doubts, my personal curiosity was put to the question, what makes DreamWorks risky? Do more. It's about a character that doesn't have much left. Edge tapping. Whether they've actually come up with a good enough story to turn the Kung Fu Panda brand in a completely different direction, just like Toy Story 4 did. Or this will be a low note. On the way to practice the evil, it's still very funny. Let's fly again today. Back to the Valley of Peace. Let's see if you can challenge Paul. Now you're a very strong martial artist. Following the events of Part 3, we are currently traveling the world. Take action against evil. You're two fathers also. Let's open a noodle shop together. And their lives are going really well. Until one day, Master Chifu suddenly announced that it is time for Paul to do his duty. It's choosing the next Dragon Warrior. From here, the hungry panda has a great responsibility, as well as learning new lessons again. On my journey, keep the special features of Kung Fu Panda, the fourth part, Dynasty audience of Pages Hippo. Even though he was the second highest player in the world, but it's very childish. It's still easy to understand, friendly for all ages, combined with the voice, where to find Jack Black comedy. Paul of the fourth part, it's still the Paul that the audience used to love. You're still hungry, still can't calm down, and still climb the stairs with your life. The deep words, it's also play with moments of home play. So the audience doesn't get the feeling that the characters are preaching the Drycon. This is what Kung Fu Panda is all about, and just keeping that familiar atmosphere. It's enough to put the film between the feet of the old audience. The martial arts are also faithful in style. What to use? And Rapal had a very powerful wand. You rarely use this treasure, so the action scenes are still mostly martial arts. It also makes the movie more fun, especially in a scene at a diner on a mountaintop. Mention martial arts. It is entirely possible that the five great generals do sympathy for the film crew, with just over half the third part of the budget. They can't afford all the stars. Have a reputation for animation? DreamWorks is one. The studio was so famous for its BAD drawings. Since the trailer came out, the audience didn't have to doubt the look. Even if you can see a little difference, the characters' shapes are very dynamic, especially the villain, with the ability to change the world quite like the eyes. The Chinese architecture, the old buildings that Paul walked through, it's all described in detail. I can tell you if you're just here for a moment of relaxation. It's harder to ask than Kung Fu Panda. I heard a lot of laughter from them, both kids and adults in the theater, so maybe this is a spiritual food. Not so bad, although the script is quite weak compared to the prequels. Actually, Panda 4 has a pretty good idea. Enough to pull the film in a completely different direction. When Paul had reached the realm of almost the highest of martial arts, the problem with you is not evil. It's about choosing who will carry on that legacy. This puts Paul in the position of the old master of Akwe. The movie is also smart when using this story, reminds the audience of the first part. The stage of the selection of the Dragon Warrior, details of the peach tree, peach seeds, and seeding. It's all very close to part 1. Make the viewer. I immediately remember the journey with him. How long it's been since I was an unworthy man. The clumsy bear is now a teacher. Master Chifu's peach seeds planted under the giant tree. Now it's on green brooms. DreamWorks hit hard and feel nostalgic. Bring back the Marquis and especially swaying on the screen, with the ambition of drawing the audience to the theater. However, we'll talk about Tai Lung and the other villains later. That's what I promise. Unfortunately, Panda has also wasted a lot of the potential of this story, almost all the time, in the development of new teachers and disciples. But the relationship between them wasn't strong enough. Genes appear in a less positive light. Let me know that you're just like Paul was. Is it chosen one unworthy? Paul will stop you, with proof that AI can also reform regulation. Paul has just moved to a new level. On the journey of cultivation, Shifu saw the potential in Paul. And now you're also going to see the potential in that one AI. He officially became a teacher. It's a good way to introduce, right? But the gene itself is a Lamport character. Your martial arts development has been very good. You don't see need to much power to teach. Was that just after a scene met a scene in the prison? The two characters are naturally close together. Let's go fight a distant villain together. May that the plot twist at the end of the film answers these questions. Take back some of the lost feeling of watching. To be fair, Zen's background, it can totally make a good story. I don't understand why. Everything that happens to you is very quick. Her feelings for Paul decided to follow him, worrying about you, and then give an eloquent speech that if you watch a movie, you'll realize it's as fast as a roller coaster. Special speed. You can even learn a trick. Paul's strong consciousness that you've had to spend a lot of film to achieve. And she gets it so quickly that it's hard to understand. The director did not want to turn Ren a second Paul. But the movie is about 20 minutes longer. To get more of the scenes that Paul taught Ren, martial arts that you don't know, it's about convincing the audience something. You deserve the title you will receive. So the interaction between the two teachers was pretty smooth. Save the viewer from a hurried pace. Paul has also made some changes. It's like punching isn't always an option. Priorities, and even though these changes are not so obvious, the movie at least make a difference for characters that are already too familiar. The difference between the two characters, the most unconvincing, the two fathers of Paul. It's easy to understand that they're like the main characters. There's not much land left to exploit. Mr. Pink is still a nervous goose, and the architect is still the architect. These two characters have their own story. It's also quite confusing, especially when the movie is ready to go. The 5 heroes are characters, much more famous and loved. Decided to carry luggage on the way to fine wine. Also comes from a very funny worrying. Do they need to be that zealous or not? When I saw you, this son beat many Gao masters before, but even though, these two characters are also very cute and funny. And it's really funny that saved the script a lot. In this movie, DreamWorks is one. The studio is famous for its villains. Not far off, just last year, the company's cat has introduced the Death Wolf, a god of death that scares the audience. The beauty of these villains, it's not just a memorable past, but also a great contribution to development of the main character. For example, that's a warning bell for cats. Go when you're too complacent. And it's based on the fact that we have so many lives. In the trailer, Gecko Shaman, capable of absorbing the martial arts of other great masters. She's turned into them. And especially faking Paul. But it's meant for the greatest enemy of Dragon Warrior. You're pretty interesting yourself. The villain can be any AI. It's pretty scary anywhere. I've been waiting for Paul and Zen to manage Rasao. With an enemy, it can be right next door without even knowing it. But once again, the movie wasted itself on a very potential character. The chameleon is strong, very strong, but in the end, they lost very quickly. Her mixed boy scenes. It's usually the most powerful weapon, only used once or twice. And of course, the dove pole. This magician doesn't have the door to win. This makes me see the scene. Dear Lung is recalled. It's like lowering this character. Soul Guy, just to say something that Paul wasn't sure he needed to hear. Get the recognition you don't need. And please spoil a little with martial arts belong. My super goods. Maybe he doesn't, to avoid the tongue of someone who doesn't know martial arts. It's about the good of villains. Let's take a look at the enemies of Kung Fu Panda. Tai Long, a genius from a young age, and Paul, the chosen one, is not worthy of me. An opposing picture of the qualities of a martial artist, and the severe consequences of wrong education. To part to Marquis, even though martial arts is not equal, but the canons he built raw. It's even better when it's a denial of the past. He denies the Kung Fu, denying the family, but parallel is a pole. Go to the roots of martial arts, and the stillness in my soul. There's always opposition in the characters, like the nature of yin and yang, or black and white on pole. Chameleon couldn't do that. She carries Shen's ambition, but there's no clear motive. And also where the transformation magic comes from. It's also not disclosed. This is just a creep of all the previous villains. To wrap this character, it's like the 10-door shape that she's turned into. Unclear the purpose behind it. Because in the moment, the last moment scared Paul and the martial arts masters. It's the only thing that brings emotion. It's the Aqua soundtrack, essence of Henry Mayer. And sadly, that's also a segment of the first part. Look at yourself. Kung Fu Panda is not a bad movie. It should be called Waste. I have a very promising idea. Ra could have been a great teacher. Xiao an equally interesting heir. And from there the gratitude details come the first movie, like a peach tree, broom, or the selection of the Dragon Warrior. It will be much more emotional. I imagine if Paul and Tai Lung met again in a different situation, that part could have been epic. Maybe you think you're too hard on one. Funny works, fun, but Kung Fu Panda. It's never just an entertaining movie. If you only care about the end, not the journey to it. The last scene is pretty good, where the story begins. Form a complete circle. It's a moment about genes. It's not hard to see. It's very similar to the conversation between Master Shifu after defeating the Tai. Maybe now, Paul has just reached the highest level of martial arts. Not only master but learn to let go. After Out Vertical, I realized the feeling of loss. Just because I love this brand so much, and even if it's not as expected, Kung Fu Panda 4 is a great movie. Is the journey of Gene still ahead?